Good evening, everyone. Hola, buenas noches. ¿Cómo están todos? Esperamos unos minutos hasta que la gente conecta. Today, we're gonna talk with a very talented DMV-based interior designer. And you might be asking, why was it that you guys were interviewing artists in Spanish and now you're switching over to English and you're talking with different people? We want to open the conversation to people who somehow form the world of art, not just the artists themselves. Hola, Ana. Hola, Victor, ¿cómo está? We don't want to just talk to the artists, but also people who are in the area of creating a more inclusive, coherent art world itself. People who work in promoting the art, people who work in providing the art into people's homes. And that's why we've been talking more with interior designers, because those are the people who actually help their clients select which type of art will work well. We would also love to talk to art consultants, art advisors, and other galleries or people who are art historians, curators as well. For the moment, we are having more interior designers on our Cuenta tu Historia. Hola Magdalena, ¿cómo está? Esperamos unos minutos. Ah, de Madrid, qué rico. Esta sesión normalmente, bueno, hasta ahora, por varios meses, presentamos artistas en español. Y la charla fue en español. Pero también ahora estamos ampliando y hablando con gente que no solo son artistas, pero son gente que está formando el mundo de arte en una manera u otra. Hoy vamos a hablar con un diseñador de interiores y ella ayuda a sus clientes a elegir cuáles obras o cuáles artes sería un mejor fit para su casa y lo incorpora en su diseño. Y quería hablar con ella, entender mejor su diseño, su estilo y también por qué incorpora arte en sus diseños. Hola Yesire. Y cómo guía sus clientes en qué tipo de arte coleccionar y agregar a su casa y cómo eso agrega valor. Queremos tener ese tipo de conversaciones para mejor entender todo lo que están involucrados en promocionar arte, desde la producción de arte hasta cómo llega una obra a la casa de una coleccionista, ¿no? Todo este proceso. Hay mucha diferente gente que está involucrado en este proceso, no solamente diseñadores de interiores, pero art consultants, advisors, curadores, art historians, galerías como nosotros, que hay mucha gente que ayuda a sus clientes a elegir el mejor obra para ellos en diferentes capacidades y diferentes maneras, ¿no? Entonces eso es lo que queremos hablar en esa sesión. Abrimos la conversación un poco. Esperamos hasta cuando llegue nuestra invitada Sara Najafi. Entonces esperamos. Hola David, ¿cómo están? Mientras tanto estamos esperando, yo puedo explicar un poco las obras que tengo atrás de mí. Eso es mi galería, parte de mi casa, y tengo el gran honor de guardar obras, pero también disfrutarlos. La obra acá que tengo es de artista Víctor Azuaje. Él es un artista venezolano y verá que él tiene mujeres como tema principal, pero lo interesante es cómo usa colores y chronogram. ¿Cómo lo dirá en español? Chronogram of color. que aunque son colores planos, se ve como muy, muy three dimension. Gracias. Sí, pensábamos que de repente es muy cierto lo que dice usted. De repente cambiamos como los guest speakers y queríamos ser más claro. Y la obra que tengo acá es de Iván Romero, nuestro artista. Es venezolano, vive en Caracas y su estilo es así abstracto, pero siempre con un tema principal de naturaleza o paisaje. Hola, David. Esa obra se llama Cypress en invierno. Hola, Sara. Ya llegó nuestra invitada. Voy a invitarle. Sarah, I'm going to invite you. You'll have to, you'll get a little, join in. No worries. I just invited. Just hop on. Hola, Mari, ¿cómo está? Gabriel, ¿cómo está? Qué gusto verles. Hoy va a ser una sesión en inglés con un diseñador de interiores, porque queremos invitar a gente que no solamente son artistas, pero gente que forma parte de cómo llega una obra hasta la casa de un coleccionista, ¿no? Y diseñadores de interiores tiene un rol bastante importante porque ellos aconsejan a sus clientes. Ese tipo de obra sería un valor agregado a su casa considerando todos estos elementos. Entonces queremos ampliar la conversación y entender las varias perspectivas de gente que está trabajando en formar el mundo de arte, ¿no? Alejandro, ¿cómo está? Sarah, I invited. Does the button come up? Just press yes or accept, and you'll be able to jump on. We have a lot of very, very talented artists that are here, eager to hear your story. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, I thought we were going to do it on the computer, so now I'm on my phone, which is not great.
No worries, I'm on my phone as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
We have a lot of artists.
Great.
I'm doing that just hop on and to understand why we are interviewing interior designers, because we want to understand not just the perspective of artists who are the producer of art, but really the people who actually help clients select the best art for them. They are a very critical role in a artwork ending up in the right collectionist's home. So we would love to understand more about your story, because this session is called Cuenta tu Historia, tell us your story, but also how your story has been embedded and also influenced your design, your current work as a designer, and how you incorporate art. I know I'm asking a bunch of questions at once, so we can start with understanding your story a little bit more. I know from your LinkedIn, you've lived in Europe, so I'm assuming you have traveled, you've seen a lot, and you've done a lot of that, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I was fortunate that my father worked with the Department of State, so he was a diplomat, which meant that we traveled a lot. We lived mostly around the Middle East, sort of Mediterranean region, so very familiar with all the countries surrounding the Mediterranean. And then with my husband, we lived in France for 17 years. So then, we're able to travel a lot through Europe. So I would say that my design and my approach to creating a feeling in people's homes tends to be a little bit more international and sort of ethnically infused. If clients let me do that, we have to, it is their home, so we have to sort of respect what they're looking for.
Right.
but that's kind of my background. I worked in a number of things before I finally got into the real estate. I worked in real estate for 6 years, so obviously the value of people's homes and making the right kind of changes to the homes are very important.
Right.
I also, actually prior to real estate, my husband and I worked on a very large renovation of a home in the south of France. So it was really there where I began to be much more familiar and actually fell in love with transforming the interiors in terms of paint, floor finishing, furniture, window treatments, things like that. So I've set up my Haute Interiors. I established that company 3 years ago. And I work primarily around in the Washington, D.C. area.
And you're currently based in Bethesda, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a lovely area. Wow, that's you've traveled a lot. That's, I mean, amazing. So is there a style that you would say defines kind of your work itself? Because I know you use chic as your tagline. Comfort, happiness, imagination, and class.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. I think because people, when you're an interior designer, decorator, you actually become very intimate with people and their lives and their sort of life patterns in their homes. And I think it's very important for me going in as really kind of a stranger into their homes to make them feel, to make them feel comfortable, but also for them to understand that the services that I'm bringing to them are going to create comfort for them. Right. Often people will come to me with problems, and I'm a problem solver. They don't have furniture is badly placed, the lighting is bad, and so we have to address those problems, but be creative in at the same time. And as I say to people, I also help them fall in love with their homes again. Because sometimes people come to me and they say, I hate the living room now, or I don't like the dining room, or I can't stand the color. And so I work with them and just say, okay, well, what are the things that we can address? But it is your space, so you need to feel comfortable living in it. My approach is to not go in and to imprint a style on somebody's home. What I do is I take the current elements that they have and I enhance them. And I try to bring in some kind of element that's going to be a pop of color, whether it's a beautiful painting or an incredible piece of furniture or, a light fixture that's kind of wow, so that there is one sort of wow factor in the space.
Is it important that it's one and not many? Just out of curiosity.
I find that I find that one of the most frequent challenges I have with people is that they feel like they have to fill their space entirely. And my approach is it's really, you can see the space better when I like to say to people, what I like to do is I like to undress the room first and then I dress it up. So if there's too much furniture, we take all the furniture out. And then we put the pieces back in that are really essential and make sure that the flow works properly. And yes, often people say, oh, but I have these 10 paintings that my grandmother did. I want to put them all up on the wall. And I say, well, no, actually, why don't we just do that one of the cat and this one of the flowers, and, and then you can remember your grandmother instead of putting them all up,
You can remember her in small doses.
Yeah, exactly.
And is that how also the way you incorporate artwork into the designs?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one accent piece, one piece that tells the story of the client. How do you guide the clients if they say, like, I would like a painting on my wall, I have no idea? What would you suggest then? How do you take on that?
I think that, as I'm sure the artists who are listening know, art is extremely personal.
Yes.
To people. Art is personal because of what the artists have put into the piece, whether it's, a canvas or a three-dimensional or glass or metal sculpture or, whatever, woodwork. and you can feel their sort of soul coming out of the work.
Yes.
And my feeling is that sometimes clients will immediately pick that up from a piece of art, and sometimes they won't. And sometimes they'll say to me, okay, I just want a big piece of art that's colorful over the fireplace. So, but when I'm looking for that, I have to think to myself, okay, is this client of mine more traditional? Are they very contemporary? You know, are they going to be okay with a completely abstract piece? What are the color themes that I'm trying to match in the room? So the choice of art is really important because it needs to be a finishing touch. I mean, a finishing touch in a room that is a little bit more complex, in a room that's very simply furnished, then the art piece is something that should stand out.
Yes, I can see how that can be a finishing piece.
Yeah.
Is there like a style that your clients prefer a little bit more, just from your experience? I know everyone's different, but did you find that our clients tend to like these styles?
No, I have clients who are really all over the place. I just recently finished working with a client who had lived in Haiti for a long time. And so he had a lot of pieces of Haitian art.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted the decor of his apartment to kind of be connected to those Haitian pieces
Oh, wow.
in terms of color. And a lot of the pieces were a bit playful. So he wanted the apartment to be a little bit playful. So we added a really colorful mobile that came down, and then a colorful couch, and because that was his pieces of art were really kind of driving the design apartment. I have now one other client who has a lot of small impressionist pieces. And she wants to have them grouped in her bedroom. And we've redone her bedroom entirely in terms of color, carpeting, paint, furniture, all this sort of thing. But she's really wed to those pieces, those impressionist pieces. So I have to kind of follow that and make sure that the colors in the room are then going to work well with those paintings.
So is that a bigger challenge to do it the other way around? Design around the
It is. And especially when people insist upon having particular pieces in a room, and you'll have to, not next week, the week after, I have to go and I'm going to work with her in hanging the pieces properly. And I know that I'm going to have to be very careful in terms of what is placed where, just because she's that sort of client, you know. But I think that the pieces she wants are going to work very well with the colors we've chosen. She had some suggestions. I said, no, those can't go in the room. They're not going to work. They're not going to work. You know. So I did kind of set the rules, but
okay. It's I guess that's a meaningful works for her, right? She has a lot of emotional attachment.
Yeah.
That's the thing about art. You relate to it, and then you fall in love with it, and then it becomes your little baby.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Do you have I know you've been doing interior design for a few years now. I'm just wondering, like, what's your kind of goals and plans as a designer? Do you have one, or?
Yeah, I do. My goal is to work. You know what? I've been doing it now 3 years. So obviously, the first year it's a little bit trial and error, and you end up with clients that are not kind of the clients that you really wanted to have, but it's a learning process. You think, okay, next time I won't approach it this way, and next time I'll use these materials instead. And so now what I'm really trying to focus on is much higher end clients, fewer jobs, but higher end. Which means it's a challenge. That means that in those terms that people are extremely particular. That means that I have to be very diplomatic and very careful on how I approach the project with them, and not step on people's toes and not sort of dictate too much. I mean, I will say that I have some clients who just hire me and they give me complete free rein. Do whatever you think is going to work, which is great. But at the same time, it's a little bit of pressure because you think at the end, wow, did I really meet their expectations? And then you have other clients who are very particular, and then you do sort of exactly what they say. Same thing. Did I meet their expectations? You know.
That we sometimes encounter that when we're working with portraits. So if clients ask for portraits and we are the interpreter between the artist and what the client wants, and you have to really tell them, like, you know, communication from 1 to 10 all the way, background color all the way, just to make sure that the clients are happy and the artist doesn't have to do the work twice.
Yeah exactly. I mean, and I really, having now, you know, made the connection with you, I really would like to be able to work with clients who are looking for you know, substantial pieces to put in their rooms. I've not encountered that yet. I've had some clients who've done that, but their budgets have been relatively limited. So we've had to sort of find other solutions. But, you know, because I do think that, as I said, I do think art, it can either be the centerpiece to a room, or it can be kind of the icing on the cake, the finishing touches.
I mean, that's wonderful that you're sharing this, because I'm pretty sure the artists who are listening are like, oh, I didn't really think about it from that perspective, right? It's more like, I'm going to tell my story, and then, oh, okay, this is how people think about it. And it's really funny because the artists, you think they're 100% just thinking about their story, but actually artists really consider what would the viewer see, right? So this type of information that you're sharing with us is actually very valuable.
I just wanted to comment. I actually worked with one of my very first clients, a very high-end client, had a space that was very difficult that she wanted to work with. We walked into her house, and then her living room was sort of long and narrow, and the dining room was at the other end of the room. Her fireplace was on one side of the living room wall, but it wasn't centered on the wall. She had on the opposite wall, opposite the fireplace, she had some beautiful pieces of modern art, American. And she wanted to make sure that in the room we positioned the pieces of furniture so that people could sit and have a discussion, but at the same time they could also look at the art. And we had to make sure that the lighting on the art was obviously well done. So that was challenging because she wanted, you know, things to work in a particular way, and the space was hard. But in that instance, the art was dictating what we had to do in the room.
Okay. Yeah, that's lovely, because that also like works as an icebreaker, or in a way it's a conversation piece, like it can work that way also. Exactly. I have a question from one of our participants. She asked, for you, is it difficult to follow your creative ideas and at the same time be respectful of the client's taste and opinion?
It is sometimes. I think that's why it takes diplomacy. There's sometimes people will, you know, are very open to the suggestions I make. I'd say 75% of the time they are, and then there are other times where people hold very firmly to what they believe in. And then my approach is, well, you asked me to come in and help you transform your space. So what I'm trying to bring you is new ideas and, you know, a kind of rejuvenate the area and rework it, that it still feels like you, but that it's different. So it can be a little bit delicate, but I generally am able to get to what they are looking for, but then that I feel is a good result.
Okay. Do you have a mix of international clients and then U.S. clients? It just popped into my mind as a curiosity because you're so international.
Yeah, I do. Mostly American at this point. I would really like to be, you know, a little bit more international, because I find that whether they're, you know, Asian or European or Latin American, they just have a different approach to design. Be a little bit more adventurous. Which I tend to be. So yeah, I would like to have more international clients. I have some at the moment, but I would certainly like to increase that.
Okay, so everyone who's listening, who's international, go check out Sarah's account and also contact her. I've looked into her account, and it's her designs are very nice and also very chic, just like she said.
Thank you.
Sarah, before we go, do you have 3 words that would describe your design?
Innovative, colorful, and refined.
That's wonderful. I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for your time and joining us. Yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting more.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you everyone for participating.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.